It's a beautiful bacon day, Cookie Crusaders. Today we are going to jump in with Sherbet and Carol Cookie. We're going to be covering them in depth on their own, but I did want to show you them as a team and how they're performing. So, as you can see, this is a battle I just produced, and I'll redo the battle again to see if we get the same odds, but here's what happened, and I'll explain why it worked. So, Financier was giving protection specifically to Frost Queen, being that she has the highest attack, and Sherbet was dealing a lot of frost attacks, and every time it stacked up, it got bigger and stronger. As you can see, we ran two healers here. Carol doing an amazing amount of healing. Here's the thing, though. Remember, the more cookies she has to heal, the less healing she technically does. But as it gets buffed and as the crit goes up and everything, it just produces more and more and more. And so it worked really well, but the reason we ran two healers is because we wanted to make sure that Jack Frost, or Sherbet Cookie, I just like to nickname it Jack Frost because the type of cookie that it is, but Sherbet Cookie was able to get those shields. So, also, an important thing to note is that every safeguard cookie does actually go ahead and count against Carol's 2 cookie activation. So that means that if you want Carol to deal damage, that will mean that the safeguard cookie and Carol cookie will be the remaining cookies on the team. So please keep that in mind when it comes to trying to utilize her attack power position. So as you can see here, we ended up having to use the feather on Sherbet. Sherbet does have squishy health, so you're going to have to either have some high damage resistance or some really good setup to make that work, hence why we use the feather in this situation. And as you can see, it is a very tough back and forth type of battle, and really what's helping is that those frost stacks between both Frost Queen and Sherbet are not only slowing the enemy down, but also giving that skill cooldown difference between the two. As you can see, this time we did less damage than the one that I just showed you, and that's because the battle actually was a little bit quicker. The previous battle took down to almost the last second. So that was the big difference there, and why the damage is different. So this time, the reason we won it a little faster is because the enemy team's Schwartz or Brute did not activate when it came to the stuns, so that was less power from their team. And so I wanted to fight this team because I wanted to show you a current meta team and how it's doing. Now, we're going to go ahead and take it into the actual arena too, and show you how it's going to handle there against a variety of teams. Obviously, if they have lower treasures, probably going to be a pretty hard battle for that team altogether. So, let's take it in and show you what's going on. Yet again, Sherbet is going to probably die in most cases unless you have some really strong setup with damage resistance. The skill itself is a 13 skill second cooldown, which is pretty good, and you can honestly run a damage resistance build with full almonds if you really want to. That is totally an option to do. It will take longer to set up the attack points, but it is definitely a doable thing. Where the way I'm running Sherbet is with cooldown right now, and maybe that's not the 100% best, but I believe it is currently. Let me go ahead and show you the toppings real quick before we jump into the next battle. So, the toppings on Financier are full cooldown. We don't have any damage resistance focus, we just want that full cooldown. If you can get damage resistance, obviously you're going to be in a better position, of course, but we just utilized our resources to pull together what we could. Full cooldown to try and get Sherbet and Frost Queen going as fast as possible, so that way the skill order has no mess-ups. Sherbet, yet again, running full cooldown, same thing, no damage resistance. If you have damage resistance, you're going to be in a better position. I'm just showing you the base level of these teams. So that means if you can get the damage resistance with these cooldown toppings, you are going to be in a powerful, powerful position. Frost Queen here, we've got good cooldown, we've only got 10% damage resistance. Same thing, still a lot of room to grow. So it's really a lot of power packed into these two. and you can really drive a lot of power between the two of them against your enemy teams. Carol, we were able to get some better damage resistance, not by much, but we did have to sacrifice a little bit of cooldown. We want that healing to go as often as possible, and we want those crit and crit percent bonus buffs to happen as often as we can. And then for our BTS cookie, As damage doesn't matter for that one, we just go full cooldown. So as you can see, this is a very cooldown heavy team, and what's also important to note is that Carol reduces the cooldown on your team as well. And I can read that skill after this battle. So those are all making very big differences for a lot of different reasons. But if I had damage resistance on Sherbet, and I had damage resistance on Frost Queen of higher caliber, and I actually had damage resistance on Financier, there might be some really high implications of this team just being completely dominating in many different cases. But what I am for sure finding is that Sherbet does best paired with another ice cookie, because the more frost stacks that happen, the better Sherbet does. So running Sherbet on their own, definitely doable, definitely able to be worked into a specific team if you set that up, but it's going to be a little bit more tough because you'll probably either have to have a high damage resistance setup or just have a setup where you aren't really worried if they die because you have Feather and you have the insignia and you're going to make it work. Whatever your plan is, there is other options too. I'm certain of it. This is just the team that's just catapulting through, as you can see, pretty easily. Like, I'm battling variety of opponents here, but overall we are fighting within the top Master 1, Master 2 arena set. So I wanted to show you the personal team that I was able to find within my friends list and fight against that, which I knew was a meta team, and that we're taking it into the arena and showing you that the variety meta is also something we can fight against. It really does take the 2 healers to make it work. I tried some other combinations without healers, really just wasn't able to function the same. And you got to think too, if you can get in a situation where you do have extra healing, you're giving that shield to Sherbet, so that makes a big difference too. Now, this person's in the top 2,000. Let's look why they actually won this battle. So their Caramel Arrow was dominatingly overpowering in every position our cookies. In addition, probably was buffed by Financier, as well as their Eclair. We didn't have anything to purge the overall debuffs on our team, so that gave them the overall advantage in the end. But that's okay. It's good to see that there is a team that can beat this, of course, because we never want a completely broken team. Then it's just no fun for anyone that doesn't have it. So it is definitely counterable for many different reasons, but we will work into all of those details and show you all the fine nitpickings between everything. The Feather, I think, is going to be a really big deal, and there are some other things I'm looking into that I think will be helpful as well. But for now, I think this is a great setup. Here is my thoughts on what could be even stronger if you have the resources to make it. And that would be running the new Halibarian Treasure with these two, Frost Queen and Sherbet, having about 25-30% damage resistance. So if you see here, we got at level 11, not level 12, but level 11, HP shield to all cookies of the team, absorbing damage equal to 28.6% of their max HP, and increases their damage resistance by 14.1% for 6.5 seconds. The HP shield capacity increases by 5% with each next activation, max of 3 activations. So that means we can get up to about 25% damage resistance increase by the 3rd activation. It's not long, it's only 6.5 seconds, but that can make a huge difference in a battle. If you combine that with additive damage resistance that's on the cookies already, you're going to be having a pretty tough force to battle through. So I think this treasure can work pretty well for this team, but I do think you're going to have 25 to 30% damage resistance on substats at least for both Sherbet and Frost Queen for that to work. Otherwise, run the Feather for the time. That's at least my opinion. In addition, let me just read the skill for you for both Carol and Sherbet. You guys have already seen the teaser skill, but the bottom part here, the Frost Shards deal 72.2% per shard, so that's 15 shards, don't forget. Frost additional damage, 49.2% for cookies, and 15% for other per shard. The Frost gives a negative 5% attack speed. Freezing damage of 50%, so if you can activate Sherbet first, you're going to empower Frost Queen's freeze damage as well. It is capped at 350% though. Nullified debuff resistance of 30% for 16 seconds. So you can't completely remove their debuff resistance. The teaser skill made it seem like it was a complete removal, which I think would have been really interesting, but it is only going to be 1/3 of their capability. The freezing that Sherbet does freezes the target for 1 second, but has an 8% chance to freeze if increased to 2% per stack of frost. So every time you get frost up, you get a higher chance of freezing the enemy target thanks to Sherbet's skill. The frost resistance Sherbet has is -50%, so not immune, but definitely resistant. And the Warm of Light is 55% of healing, is exceeding max HP to convert to a shield, a max of 30% HP. So you can't run 4 healers and just forever have a shield on Sherbet Cookie either. So that's also another thing to consider, is that you're not going to be able to have a perma shield on Sherbet just because of healing. You can though run a Claire, Pure Vanilla, and some other healers and probably keep a pretty long shield on Sherbet unless you're fighting Twizzly or Dark Cacao. But a lot of different implications with this. We're going to go ahead and read Kale real quick, and we'll go into similar details for each of them, but just a quick highlight rundowns for this one. So the healing is 151.5% of her attack. The crit is 15% for 15 seconds. It's pretty good. A crit, it just says just crit, but I believe it's crit damage of 12% for 15 seconds because the crit percent is above, and it would be weird if they're the exact same thing. So I'm pretty sure that's just crit damage. The Song of Change is 331.4% of her attack, and the ally cooldown is minus 2.5 seconds. So I'm going to be working with Carol and Oyster quite a lot. I can already see some really fun combinations with the two of them. But this is the team rundown for what I think is going to be a powerful PvP arena team for you to put together if you have the resources to do so. I think it's going to work really well for you guys. Hopefully you enjoy this, and hopefully this video is helpful for you. I will definitely be going into detail about more of the team setups and options as we go through. Definitely look forward to those. I really want your feedback in the comments of what you think is going to be working best, and I really appreciate you guys for stopping by and watching if you have chosen to do so. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.